3 in the morning. The room is dark, the ceiling like an empty screen. The phone says 3:17, and honestly, that's already enough to kill the mood. Modern sleep culture works like a strict exam. 8 hours straight, no waking up, no breaks. Lie down, switch off, wake up to the alarm. Perfect. But look a little closer at history and something strange emerges. For most of human history, people didn't sleep like this at all. In fact, plenty of people woke up regularly in the middle of the night, and no one called it insomnia. Which raises a question that split historians into two camps. Maybe waking up at night is a forgotten natural rhythm. Or maybe it's just a side effect of cold houses, parasites, and boredom. To settle it, let's have a little argument. Sleep evolution. From dusk till dawn. First thing to get straight. Our modern sleep schedule is very young. The idea that you need 8 straight hours showed up recently, right along with the industrial age. Before factories, alarm clocks, and office hours, life worked completely differently. The sun set the rhythm of the day, the night was long and dark. People went to bed early, often right after sunset, but they didn't sleep in one stretch. Old texts keep mentioning weird phrases, first sleep and second sleep. They mention them so casually, like breakfast and dinner. First, people would sleep about 4 hours, then they'd wake up, sometimes for an hour, sometimes 2, and only then fall back asleep until dawn. To a modern person, that sounds like a clinical disorder, but for a medieval European, that was just a normal night. And this is where the big debate begins. Was this broken rhythm truly natural to the human body, or just a harsh compromise forced by the cold, dark realities of the old world? The Ekirch camp, romantic biphasic sleep. The main champion of the biphasic night is historian Roger Ekirch. He spent 16 years in archives and dug up hundreds of mentions of first and second sleep in diaries, letters, court records, and medical texts. From these fragments comes a surprisingly vivid picture of nightlife back then. That gap between sleeps was like a Swiss Army knife, precious time everyone used differently. Some prayed in the dark, others mended coarse clothes because daylight was for the fields. Some just sat by the dying fire, sharing quiet stories. But the archives also show a much darker side of the night. Court records say thieves often waited for the quiet end of the first sleep. People were drowsy and far less alert. It was the perfect moment for a robbery. Medical texts, on the other hand, recommended that hour for intimacy. The body, they thought, was most relaxed after the first sleep, and more fertile. So here's an unexpected picture. That night pause wasn't just biological, it was deeply social. From this, Ekirch makes a bold claim. In his view, biphasic sleep is an ancient biological rhythm, one humanity lost after artificial light arrived, but not everyone agrees. The other side, Fleas, cold, and the Hadza. To see how people sleep without electricity, anthropologists looked at modern hunter-gatherers. One group is the Hadza of Tanzania. No lamps, no smartphones, no factory shifts. Their lifestyle is closer to the pre-industrial world than most of us could imagine. And here's the surprise. The Hadza mostly sleep in one solid block. No forced 2-part night, a fact that challenges our modern theories. That became a serious counter-argument to Ekirch. If biphasic sleep is a universal natural mechanism, why doesn't it show up in people living without technology? Another idea emerged. Maybe the European double sleep wasn't biology, but an adaptation to how people lived. Take cold, for instance. In stone houses or wooden huts, the fire could die in the middle of the night. Waking up to relight the hearth, that's just survival. Then there's a less romantic reason. Parasites. A medieval bed was often a straw sack full of fleas and bedbugs. Waking up, shaking out the bedding, walking around, that's just practical. And finally, boredom. Winter nights could last 14 hours. Your body simply can't sleep that long in one go. So in that heavy, endless darkness, sleep would naturally split into pieces to fill the time. So the 2-part night might have been just a simple household compromise. But then, why do modern people in darkened labs sometimes drift back to this ancient forgotten pattern? It's a mystery. The Thomas Wehr effect. Biology in isolation. In the late 20th century, psychiatrist Thomas Wehr ran a simple but curious experiment. He took away artificial light from a group of volunteers. Their days got shorter, the nights longer. After a few weeks, many started sleeping exactly like the old texts describe. 4 hours of sleep, then quiet wakefulness, then another sleep until morning. That observation brought the biphasic theory back to life. But even here, it's not black and white. Some researchers think human sleep is just extremely flexible. It changes shape depending on the environment. In other words, there's no single correct sleep pattern, just the one that works best for your unique situation, climate, light, and social life. Sometimes one long sleep, sometimes two shorter ones, and perhaps both are equally natural and human in their own way. But there's one thing this debate almost never touches on. What if waking up at night wasn't just about sleep, but about how the old world actually ran? Night engineering, the forgotten rhythm. Here's another detail rarely mentioned when people talk about first and second sleep. The night in the pre-industrial world wasn't empty at all. Economic historians found a weird pattern in city archives. A lot of small work happened precisely at night, in that gap between sleeps. Bakers kneaded dough before first light. Laundresses lit fires to boil linen. Fishermen headed into the mist before the morning market opened. The world woke in stages. Even city security worked a special night shift. Watchmen patrolled streets during those quiet hours when most were awake between sleeps, keeping a sharp eye on the dark. So here's an interesting picture. If a big chunk of society was awake in the middle of the night, the city could run almost around the clock. No electricity, no 24-hour stores. Some researchers even think biphasic sleep helped spread out activity. While one part of the people slept, another was already moving. But then an even stranger detail appears. If night waking was perfectly normal, why is this specific hour in old cultures surrounded by such a deep, lingering fear? It was often called the witching hour. Why did people whisper about the devil's hour and try not to stare into the dark too long? Maybe in that night pause, people met something far scarier than a hidden lack of sleep. The devil's hour, paralysis, and folklore. If waking up at night was once a normal part of sleep, here's a strange question. Why is that exact hour in European culture wrapped in so much dark fear and ancient chilling mystery? Many traditions divided the night into special intervals, and the most disturbing one fell around 3 a.m. Later, this time even got a name, the Devil's Hour. But it might not be just religious imagination. Modern neuroscience knows a terrifying state that almost perfectly matches that gap between sleeps, the heavy, frozen nightmare of sleep paralysis. You wake up, your mind is back, but your body is still asleep. Your chest feels pinned to the bed, you can't move, shadows appear in the room, silhouettes, sometimes the feeling of someone else there. Today we know it's just a glitch between phases, but in the 15th century, it looked like something else entirely. In English folklore, a night hag sat on the sleeper's chest. In Scandinavian stories, a creature called the Mara. That's where the original word nightmare comes from. In Slavic beliefs, it could be a house spirit or something unclean pressing down on you in your sleep. And almost always, these encounters happened right in that interval of night wakefulness. But the fear of this hour might have even deeper roots. Anthropologists noticed something curious long ago. In traditional societies, people rarely all sleep at the same time. There's always someone who wakes up in the middle of the night and stays awake for a while. That creates a kind of night watch. On the savannah, where our species evolved, this made perfect sense. While part of the group slept, someone had to listen for a snapping branch, a predator's growl, or another tribe approaching. Maybe that's why night waking often comes with such a strange, deep sense of anxiety. The body instinctively scans the space around it. Are there eyes glowing in the dark? If this theory is right, then waking up at 3 a.m. isn't a glitch. It's an ancient sentry post the body sometimes turns on by itself. But then a new question appears. If being awake at night was once part of human life, what made us give up that old night watch? The industrial age changed everything. The continuous night, how industry changed us. Even if two-part sleep was once common, and its fate wasn't decided by a biologist, it was an engineer economist. In the 17th and 18th centuries, European cities started lighting up. First oil lamps, then gaslight. The night slowly stopped being total darkness. And with the Industrial Revolution came a new resource: time. Factories demanded discipline, shifts, schedules, precise start times. The two-part night just didn't fit. It was far easier for people to sleep in one chunk than show up to work rested and predictable. Over time, that became the only normal way. Waking up at night became a warning sign. A word appeared: insomnia. But maybe some of those night awakenings are just leftovers of old rhythms that never fully disappeared. The more scientists study sleep, the clearer it gets. There's no universal formula. Some studies hint at an ancient biphasic rhythm. Others show that people sleep perfectly fine in one block. Maybe the human body just knows how to adapt to the world around it. So if you wake up at 3 a.m., it's not necessarily a problem. Sometimes it's just an old mechanism reminding you it's still there. Instead of panicking, just sit in the silence for a couple of minutes. History says, for a human being, that's not the strangest thing to do in the middle of the night. So what's your night like? Do you sleep in one stretch? Or do you sometimes find yourself in that quiet pause between sleeps? This sleepy debate has been going on for years, and it seems there's still no final answer. Subscribe to the channel. Let's keep an eye on this fascinating piece of history together.